Yo, what's good, guys? So I've been learning Branded the last few weeks, and I want to just share what I've been learning. This is kind of geared towards people also learning Branded. It's not the easiest deck to pick up. It's not the easiest deck to find content for, just for the basics, because a lot of this stuff is kind of assuming you already know a lot, and maybe you don't. So I'm going to make that kind of content, and even if you do know a bit of Branded, maybe you can learn something as well. So I'm going to talk about in this video what to do when your Branded Fusion resolves. It's kind of, taken for granted that you know what to do, but there's a lot of stuff you can go into. It's not always obvious what you should go into and when, so that's what I'm going to address first. And then in the next video or two in the series, I'm going to talk about what to do if you get stopped. We have to start from, step one, what to do if you don't get stopped so that you can win those games. And then we'll deal with winning the games where you have some troubles. All of the options that you can summon off of Branded Fusion, not all of them are very relevant. There's three main ones that are relevant, but we'll talk about them all. Yeah, let's start with some of the less relevant ones. I guess we'll go from probably least relevant to most relevant. Starting with the least relevant is Albion, the Abyss Dragon. Pretty much cut from most Branded lists nowadays, and its best use is probably just the contact fuse to get rid of a board of dragons. The next one is going to be Titaniclad. Titaniclad basically is a really big body. You can get it up to 3,900 if you send Albaz and Nibiru. Unless you're actually using Albaz's effect, you're not going to be summoning this off of Branded Fusion. Spring the Iron Dash Dragon. So this card can be used as removal, but most importantly, it can be used if you are under Contact C, which is a very popular hand trap. Sprint takes Fallen of Albaz +1 monster special summon this turn. So if your opponent summons Contact C to your side of the field, you can Branded Fusion using the Contact C on your side of the field, and then an Albaz from deck to go into Sprint, and then Sprint has some popping effects as well. Brigrin the Glory Dragon, so you can make this on occasion. It gives your board some protection. You usually don't make this going first, like on turn 1, but going on like turn 3, you might want to summon this just to give your fusion monsters some protection from destruction. But we're not really going to talk about this. These are more often sends off of Mirror Jade to search Mercurier or Kit. Alright, and that brings us to the main three. The main three, we'll talk about them. We'll start with Rindbrumm. This one you summon with Albaz and traditionally Tri-Brigade Mercurier. And there's a very specific situation where you're going to want to summon this over the other two. So we're going to talk about Rindbrumm a lot, but I'll stop for now. The next one is Lubellion, the Searing Dragon. This takes Albaz and a Dark Monster. So traditionally, you're going to be sending Albaz and Despian Tragedy. And then the final monster you might summon off of Branded Fusion is going to be Albion, the Branded Dragon. This one, you're typically going to be sending Albaz plus bystial Lubellion. You can also send Albaz plus Blazing Cartesia if the situation calls for it, but these final three are the ones you're going to be going into the most, and there are kind of situational checkboxes you have to use to determine which of them you should be going into. So let's clear the other four, and we will talk about these three as our main Branded Fusion plays for going first. Okay, so as I said, to summon these, your typical targets are going to be, in addition to Fallen of Albaz, which is mandatory for all of them, of course, we're going to be sending Bystial Lubellion to summon Albion, Despian Tragedy to summon Lubellion, Tri-Brigade Mercurier to summon Rindbrumm. Now, all of these are probably options for you when you go first and open your hand with Branded Fusion. So which one should you go into? The easiest one to explain when to go into is going to be Rindbrumm because it's the most situational. So let's talk about that one first. When we activate Branded Fusion and send Albaz and Mercurier to go into Rindbrumm, what is our follow-up play? Because none of these cards activate after Branded Fusion resolves. So the only way to continue your play is to banish Tri-Brigade Mercurier. What that means is that you're only going to go into Rindbrumm if your hand started with both Branded Fusion and some way to banish Mercurier, and those ways are going to be the Bystial Lubellion, Bystial Saronir, or in very niche situations, Branded in white. And if you're playing a larger or like a higher bystial count, any of the other bystials will work as well. For now, we're going to be talking about only these three options because these are the ones that are typically played. So what do we do here? So let's just say we start with Bystial Lubellion and search Saronir. and let's ignore the branded in white play for now. What we're going to do next is activate Bystial Saronir to banish the Mercourier. Saronir will summon itself, and Mercourier will activate, and that will search us a copy of Blazing Cartesia. Send the Saronir to summon the Lubellion, and then Saronir will activate to send a copy of Branded Retribution to the graveyard. Bystial Lubellion will activate to activate a copy of Branded Lost from our deck. And then we can special summon our copy of Blazing Cartesia to our field because we have a copy of Fallen of Albaz in the graveyard. The next thing we're going to do is activate our Blazing Cartesia to fuse, and we can get rid of the Lubellion and the Cartesia to summon a copy of Grand Guignol. And then we can activate both Grand Guignol and Branded Lost. Grand Guignol dump a copy of Garura to the graveyard to draw one, and then Branded Lost will search us a copy of Albion the Shrouded Dragon. So right now we have Albaz in grave, Lubellion in grave, but it's used already, Cartesia in grave, and then we draw one off of Garura. Next play we are going to do is activate Albion the Shrouded Dragon to put itself to the bottom of the deck in order to send a copy of Branded in white to our graveyard. We can now activate the Branded Retribution from our grave, banishing it to add back the Branded in white to our hand. We can activate the Branded in white, banishing the Garura we sent, and the copy of Fallen of Albaz to summon a copy of Mirror Jade. We can activate Mirror Jade's effect to send a copy of Albion the Branded Dragon from our extra deck to our graveyard. And then Chainlink 2, we are going to negate our own Mirror Jade with Rindbrumm, so that nothing gets banished. But this was cost, so Albion will still resolve in the end phase. Mirror Jade will still be able to activate on the following turn because its effect was negated. And then in the end phase, we can activate our copy of Albion to set something from our deck. Now, we don't have any Despias or Fallen of Albaz in our grave, so our go-to is going to be one of the traps because Branded in red is dead. Alternatively, we can add Branded in red or Branded Fusion to our hand. But if you're playing the traps, like Branded Expulsion, we can go ahead and set that. And then you can choose to also return Blazing Cartesia to your hand in the end phase. Again, in order to go for this play, you're going to have to start with Branded Fusion and a way to banish Mercourier, which is either Bystial, or you start with the Branded in white. And Branded in white, instead of the whole Bystial line, you can just banish Albaz and Mercourier, go into Lubellion, the Lubellion fusion, and then from there go into Mirror Jade. Let's return to our options for Branded Fusion, and then the next one we'll talk about is Lubellion the Searing Dragon. So we're going to want to go for Lubellion when we open Branded Fusion and nothing else. For example, if we open Branded Fusion, if we hard open it and we do not normal summon Alibur to search it, I think Lubellion is the best play to go for there. So let's talk about why. So in this scenario, you're going to go ahead and activate Branded Fusion. You're going to send your copy of Albaz and Tragedy to the graveyard to summon Lubellion. Lubellion will activate discarding a blank, and then Tragedy will also activate to search. And then Tragedy can search us a copy of probably Alubur in this case, but you can also search a copy of Adlib. So you have a couple options here. Let's actually go for the Adlib play. Then we can resolve Lubellion. We're going to have to return Lubellion and the Fallen of Albaz to our deck in order to summon our copy of Mirror Jade. And then we have an Adlib in hand, Tragedy in grave, and pretty much just an active Mirror Jade here. So if you open Branded Fusion and nothing else, your play is kind of limited. You're just sitting on a Mirror Jade pretty much. Your other option is to go also on your turn, activate Mirror Jade's effect, sending Albion the Branded Dragon as cost and banishing your own Mirror Jade. Then in the end phase, you can activate your Albion to set a copy of Branded in red. And then during your opponent's turn, you're going to activate your Branded in red, targeting your Tragedy, and you'll use Tragedy and Ad Libitum. And if you have a third monster, you can use a third monster to go into Guardian Chimera. and then your ad libitum will activate, summoning back your Mirror Jade. So you'll get back your interruptions, but this is a little risky because if your branded in red does not resolve, you pretty much have an open board. But now let's look at what happens if we open Aluber instead of just branded fusion. Instead of the previous example where we just had 4 blanks and a branded fusion, now we can go normal summon Aluber to search our branded fusion and activate it, sending our Tragedy and Fallen of Albaz to the grave to summon our copy of Lubellion. Now Lubellion can discard one of the blanks and shuffle Albaz and itself back into the deck to summon our copy of Mirror Jade. Now though, we can activate our... with Tragedy we would have searched our copy of Ad Libitum. Okay, now though we can activate our Mirror Jade, sending the Albion and then banish the Aluber, and then we'll still at least have a body on board so that when we set our branded in red in the end phase, we still have our Tragedy and Adlib, and now we have Mirror Jade as the 3rd fusion material for Guardian Chimera, so that when you send it, Adlib can bring it back and Mirror Jade will be live again. So it's much better if you start with Aluber and go into this board than if you just start with the branded fusion. Our 3rd option to summon off of branded fusion is Albion the Branded Dragon, where we'll be sending Fallen of Albaz and Lubellion. Now, you're going to want to only do this not if you open 4 cards and a branded fusion, but if you open 4 cards including Aluber, and let me explain why. So let's say, first of all, I'll show you why not to do it with 4 cards plus branded fusion. So if you go branded fusion, and these are all like blanks, and then we send Lubellion and Albaz to summon Albion, now what? So Albion will activate, and we're going to want to summon our Mirror Jade, but the only way to do that is to banish our Albaz and the Albion off the field. Mirror Jade will summon, and you have no further plays. You have no way to send an Albion to the graveyard to get its end phase effect. Lubellion is dead in grave, so that's no good. But what we want to do instead is if our situation is 4 blanks and an Aluber, and all of this with Aluber includes if you have branded opening to summon out Aluber. But let's say now we go normal summon Aluber, search our copy of branded fusion, activate the branded fusion to again send Albaz and Lubellion to summon Albion the Branded Dragon. Now we have fusion material to continue. So now we can use Albaz and Aluber to summon our copy of Lubellion. Lubellion will activate, discarding one of our blanks to fusion summon into Mirror Jade by shuffling back the Albaz and the Lubellion. And now we have a Mirror Jade out. Now from here we can continue by sending the Albion the Branded to summon the bystial Lubellion. Bystial Lubellion can now activate the Branded Lost from deck, and in the end phase we'll get Albion the Branded Dragon's effect to set or search a branded card. So if one of your blank discards was a Despia monster, which would be clutch, then we definitely want to go for branded in red because it will be live. If it was not, we're going to want to go for one of the traps, either Expulsion or Banishment, if you choose to play either of those in the main deck. And then if none of that is true, then you can just add a branded fusion to your hand for follow-up. Okay, let's recap. When do we go into each of the main 3 branded fusion plays? We go into Rindbrumm with Mercurier, only if we can banish the Mercurier afterwards. How do we banish the Mercurier afterwards? Bystial Lubellion, branded in white, or Bystial Saronir. If you do not have one of these 3 cards in your hand, do not go for the Rindbrumm play. Next, when do we go for the Albion play? We go for the Albion play if we have Aluber in hand. That's just a general rule of thumb. There are other ways. If you have other dark monsters in hand that you can use as fusion material after you summon Albion, that's okay. But generally, the most common thing you'll have is Aluber searching branded fusion. So if you go Aluber search branded fusion, then you go for Albion and the Lubellion line. You go for the Lubellion line when all you have is branded fusion and 4 blanks. That's pretty much what's going on. It's even better if you also have Aluber. But if you have Aluber, you might as well go for the Albion line. You get more out of it. unless you can read the situation where you think that going just for the Lubellion into the Mirror Jade with the branded in red follow-up is going to be more value for you, then you go for this. But generally you get a lot more cards if you go for the Albion and bystial Lubellion line. So that's a summary of which one you go into and when. Now let's talk about one more bonus scenario that I feel like needs to be mentioned because it's become pretty standard for branded decks nowadays. So let's say we just have 4 blanks and a branded fusion. We're going to activate branded fusion, and we're going to send different targets. We're going to send Fallen of Albaz as is necessary, and also a copy of Dark Magician. So from here, that summons Lubellion. Lubellion will discard a blank to fusion summon a copy of Red Eye's Dark Dragoon using itself and using itself and Dark Magician. You can use itself or you can use the Albaz as the material, but I like to just use Lubellion, get it off the field because it plays around Lava Golem. Lubellion's dead on your field. It's just a body with no effect, so it's a vanilla. And having Albaz in your grave makes a lot of your effects live, a lot of your cards live, such as branded in red, branded in white, Blazing Cartesia, and so forth. So it's always fine to keep an Albaz in grave. It'll get you a lot more value than the blank Lubellion on field. So that's the 4th and final fusion play that you would go into through branded fusion. You can pick Dragoon or you can pick Mirror Jade based on your matchup, based on whichever one you know would be better for you. So, hope you guys enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel for more branded content coming soon. I'm going to record another one right after this. So, yeah, make sure you subscribe to catch that one, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks.